Hey, we're getting started in the Siemens S7-1200 PLC class. Want to take a quick video of this one I have on my wall here and how I have it wired. This could differ from the one that you have, but if it's a DC PLC, it will be very similar. So my rack looks a little different. I have a Siemens power supply. You'll probably have one of the generic power supplies. I also have an Ethernet card. This is just because I have an HMI over here off to the side. When we get to that, you'll need more than one Ethernet jack. But right now, we'll just plug into the one that is provided straight to our computer. And then I have a PLC. I have a 1214C DC PLC. You'll probably have a 1212. The only difference is this extra set of inputs and outputs. So if I cover up these extra inputs and outputs, you have a 1212. So as long as you know what your specifications on the side of the PLC are, um, in terms of this video, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you know what your power source is, what your inputs take, and what outputs are giving out. Whether that's DC, AC, whether the outputs are DC or relay, just know your specifications. To go on to the wiring here, I have this PLC wired up with 2 inputs and 1 output. I believe 1 output. Yes, I do. So starting up here at the top on your PLC, and remember, mine is a DC. Over here, you normally have your power source, whether that be AC, DC. This top left corner is going to be what turns the PLC on and supplies power. I have a 24 volt with an arrow facing in. I have an L plus and an M. The L plus would be your positive 24 volts. The M in Siemens language is your neutral or is your negative. Working our way across the top, we have a ground for a ground cable. Then we have a 24 volt with an arrow pointing out. We have that L plus and that M again for our positive and negative. If you're using a AC PLC, you're giving 120 volts right here. You can get 24 volts DC at a very low amperage out of right here. So you don't have to have that separate power supply for these 24 volt inputs. You can still use that as a separate power source if you have 24 volts. In my case, I'm just using the same power source. So those wires are coming off the same power source for positive and negative. Moving across the top here, now we are into our inputs. And like I said, mine has more, so we'll mainly concern about these first 8. We have an M1. That is the input common. If you look at your wiring diagram for this PLC, you'll see that goes to every single input through whatever you have, a button or whatever. Depending on what you are hooking up, depends on if you put a positive as your common or a negative as your common. In this case, there is a negative as the common, meaning I am supplying 24 volts back to the input, positive 24 volts. So I have to tell it a reference. So I give it a common on the M1, and then I can send 24 volts to all of these slots to turn that input on. Moving to the bottom, starting over here, we have our Ethernet jack. This is where you'll plug in your cable from your PLC to your computer for any communications. We'll ignore this guy right here. I have a signal board on this to extend my I/O. Yours is not going to have it, or if it does, we're going to take it out for this lab. Then down here, I have a DC, meaning my outputs are DC volts, so it's providing 24 volt positive out. So down here, I start by powering this card. Look at this as an output card. So I give it a positive and a negative. To the 3L plus and the 3M, I give a positive and negative reference. And now if these outputs are turned on, I will get a positive 24 volts across here. So for this example, I have one light wired up to output 0.0. And then up top here, I have actually two buttons here. Your first lab will be 1. I have a green button to 0.0 and a red button to 0.1. That is successfully wiring up a Siemens PLC of the DC variety. Apply this to whatever your PLC needs, and you're almost ready for power up.